Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? I see people are joining. So as people are joining, please put in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or in the StreamYard, whatever this is, the webinar workshop, please put us where your short-term rental properties are from. It is a Friday, everybody, and I love Fridays, except my Fridays are typically busier than other days of the week. I think people wait to put off stuff, and hence I am busier on Fridays. But I'm feeling pretty good. Weekend's coming up, and I'm super excited. I'm just getting ready. So how about everybody? Why I'm so amped up about this particular workshop is because I'm going to be helping you guys find, evaluate, and underwrite deals. And I have been working hard on this one in a sense that I've tried to get people's opinions about what they want the most. And so I put a poll in my Facebook group, the STR Data Host. If you're not in that, you should join that. It's a free group where we talk all things data and short-term rentals. Been really, really good. There's a lot of good people in that group and across different, even data providers as well. It's a safe space. It's not just STR Insights. It is a safe space for all. So please join that group. But tell me, where are your short-term rentals? Tell me about your markets, because I might, during my presentation, talk about some of your markets. And I might involve some of you in the comments as well. I want you guys to interact a little bit on this one and help me out, because I want to spend more time helping the needs that you have. Sure, I can speak to the masses, and that's fine too, but my goal is to help each of you individually and touch on the things that you guys care about. And like I said, I put a poll out and recently, and it was I was like, hey, out of these three topics, finding, evaluating deals, and underwriting, which was more important, and underwriting came up as the highest. I was shocked on that one. But that's okay. So you might be wanting more information about finding or evaluating, whatever, but let me know where your short-term rental properties are. And then also, out of those three that I mentioned that you want me to spend time on, let me know finding, evaluating, then underwriting. Let me know which of those you care the most about in the comments as well as we start to join, because I'll go up to an hour and a half if I need to. And that's what at least I budgeted for this in terms of time. So I have no problem doing that and highlighting those and spending time on those and answering your questions. If you have questions during this workshop, please just post them in the comments. I do have some presentation stuff. We're going to be going in through my presentation, but we're going to go into Airbnb. We're going to go into STR Insights. We're going to go into spreadsheets. We're going to go into Zillow. We're going to find deals, and we're going to look for opportunities and markets together today. So I hope you're excited. And another thing too, I've been hearing a lot from these workshops. If you don't have a note taker out, like pen and paper or your computer, I have like a little notepad thing when I go and take notes, probably want to pull it up, because I'm going to cover a lot of information. And the biggest thing I hear is, Kenny, you give there's just so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And I understand that. And that's why I want you to ask questions and go through everything, but take notes. This is recorded too, so you can watch it later. But in reality, I don't know how many times we rewatch videos. Maybe the overachievers who are watching do. I struggle to do that. But when I take good notes, though, that helps me. It also helps me to know what points were said and at what points they were said, so I can go back and rewatch that. So definitely check that out. We're going through here, and Cyrus said, hey, Kenny. Hey, Cyrus. Wow, like we've got some people who are wanting to find and looking at the Bourbon Trail. I'm actually looking at evaluating a property for a client on the Bourbon Trail. So interesting. Wow. Southern Illinois, Shawnee National Forest. That's interesting, Dan. Like to learn more about that market. Haven't heard too much about it. That's really cool. Somebody's looking for their first one. So that's awesome. Hoping to find one in Northern Michigan. There are some cool properties in Northern Michigan, Alyssa. I would check out Spring Lake, Michigan. I've seen 2 decent deals there. I don't know what your budget is, but that's a really cool area. Newry, Bethel. Ooh, good markets. Fairview. Oh, That's actually a market I'm going to be covering. Yeah, that's funny. We've really just got people all over Tybee Island. I love it. That's actually, I grew up near there. That's where I used to go to the beach. Cool. We've got markets all across the country. Colorado, oh, and Niagara Falls. I am 15 minutes from Niagara Falls, Devin, so maybe we should meet up. Cool. Everyone's saying finding, couple saying evaluating. Sweet. We'll spend time, guys. Like I said, questions, put them in the comments. I think we're ready to go. We still have people filing in. That's okay. We'll get going. I apologize if I messed up the email sequence. If you got an email last week saying the webinar was last week or workshop was last week, it's this week. All right, let's dive into it. I'm going to present a screen and we will get rolling. Let me get this all set up. All right. So like I said, I'll probably be moving around different screens here. I hope you guys are okay with that. This isn't some formal, whatever. It's just a workshop. Like I want to provide as much resources and look at examples because I think that's what's really important is seeing examples and doing it together. And that's really what I wanted to focus on this time is trying to do this together for you guys. Yes, it is recorded. That was a question up there. And let's go. All right. So obviously we're going to talk about finding, but a little sneak in. We're going to talk about evaluating too, because that's just as important. I've seen so many properties for sale on the market that are using 2022 and 2021 numbers to support their price, which we know is just not accurate. Most markets, to be frank about it, most are seeing a 10 to 15% dip in revenue this year. When I say this year, I'm talking like I can take the first 6 months of this year and compare it to the first 6 months of 2022 and realize that these properties are doing 10 to 15% less. Now, does that mean every property is doing 10 to 15% less? No, some are actually doing better year over year and some are doing worse than 10 or 15%. So not trying to hit on this, Airbnb bus thing for too long, but it just depends on your property. And that's why you got to get it right from the start. And that's what I'm hoping to help you guys understand and teach you how to do this. And ultimately, just because I show you the things like, there's like the secret formula or whatever you want to call it that I'm going to show you, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to master it right out the gate. You have to practice it. You have to rinse and repeat. But I can tell you, if you do these things, you will find deals today. My team is still finding deals every single day. We have a sheet where we go through, we're looking at properties all across the country. We're evaluating them, but we're looking for certain things. And what's really interesting, there's a correlation to this. I was looking this up. The average days on market for the deals that we're finding today is about 40 days on market for the deals that we're finding today. Now, most people think, oh, well, if the deal's on the market, it's going to go like that. It's going to go over asking. It never does. Usually the clients we've been working with, they get a good deal and they also ask typically less and they're getting it. And it's because we're looking for very specific things that work in markets. And that's what I want to show you. And that's going to help you with finding, evaluating, and underwriting. So let's get into it. Okay, so obviously we're going to talk first about finding deals. How do I find deals? What are the steps to finding deals? What do I look for? Kenny, walk me through some examples and let's do it. If there is anything unclear in the presentation or you have further questions about, just put them in the comment section and let's sit on it and let's talk about it. Okay, then we're going to talk about evaluating deals. How do I project revenue for the next 12 months when I have no idea what's going to happen? We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show you an example of that. And then how do I underwrite deals? How do I figure out the expenses of it and what expenses I need to include? And how do I know, what type of loan I should be getting and how that could impact the deal and pencil it out? Most deals don't work because of the underwriting when it's done, meaning the expenses break the deal. Sure, a property could be, making a pretty decent penny, but when you go and get that insurance quote for short-term rental insurance, not just regular homeowners insurance, like in Florida, for example, it could be $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is, depending on, the property, and it could break the deal and the cash flow you're expecting to get for that property. So we really need to understand how to underwrite as well. And I'm going to sit pretty heavy on this one, so it's very clear and there's no questions about it. Okay, so and then obviously next step. So cool, you showed us all of this stuff. Now, how can we proceed forth? How can we go and apply the things that you've taught us? What can you help us out with here, Kenny? And that's stay towards the end. I want to give you guys something special at the end to help you guys, give you the resources and the tools to be successful. Okay, let's start with finding. All right, finding. This is my favorite one, to be honest. So finding is about three things. Understanding market inefficiencies, and we'll talk about what those are. Basically looking for opportunities in the market. There's two types of market inefficiencies that I've found, and I'm going to show those to you. The second thing is, and I'm going to show you examples of what those look like, more importantly, so you'll be able to quickly identify them no matter the market you're looking for, identify market efficiencies. So, and you may have heard me talk about market inefficiencies before as like holes in the market or basically opportunities in the market. But that's essentially what it is. And we'll get into that in a second. Introducing unique things. Now, am I talking about, glamping and tents or tiny homes? That's something unique you can introduce to a market that might not already be there. But the idea is, let's introduce something into a market that works in other markets that is yet to be in this market. I'm going to be more specific about that. That's kind of vague and maybe unclear, but we're going to talk about luxury properties in particular. And the reason why introducing unique things into a market can be successful is because the data supports it in other markets. There are over 13,000 short-term rental markets in the United States alone. 13,000, okay? 90% of those markets do not have all the same characteristics of properties that the other 10% have. And primarily, I'm going to be talking about luxury properties in detail here. And this might fit some of you and it won't fit some of you, and that's fine. There's going to be other things we'll talk about as well. But there are certain proven ways that you can say, hey, this concept works over here based on the data. There might not be any data in the market I'm targeting. I get this all the time. Kenny, there's no data for this property I'm looking at. There's only 5 properties here. There's only, there's no 5 bedrooms or whatever that is. We've got to study the trends in the different markets across the country to understand how this could work in the market we're trying to target. And I'm going to, like I said, we're going to look at examples and we'll be very clear on that and dive into that. So that's going to be really fun. You're going to like the data for this one. The most important one is this one right here, the 4 keys of finding. And I want you guys, I want you to write it down again. I want you to memorize it. It's not hard. It's only like 4 keywords, but 4 keys of finding short-term rentals. This is going to be the most important one that you could take away from anything. If everybody could understand this concept, no one would buy a bad deal, but people don't, and they buy bad deals all the time. And so this is the hands down most important thing you can do to finding, and basically getting a solid foundation in terms of identifying profitable short-term rentals. Sweet. Okay, let's dive into it. Market efficiencies. Number 1, holes in the market, or what I call bedroom count inefficiencies. So a lot of people think that revenue is like incremental or linear, meaning, bedroom 1 makes, like this example here, bedroom 1 makes 20,000, bedroom 2 makes 30,000, bedroom 3 makes 45,000, and so on. However, notice one thing. First off, there's a difference between, and this was pulled from STR Insights, by the way. I think this is Asheville, or I don't know. There's some, no, it's not Asheville. It's another market. I think one of the markets in the mountains there. Sorry, I can't remember which one, but, and it doesn't matter because every single market has some sort of inefficiency by bedroom count. And there's really 2 types. So what you're going to see here is the first type is actually where the data doesn't make sense. And this is a perfect example of this. So, and I've highlighted it here. So you've got this incremental increase of bedroom counts, and you notice that the increase it's not linear. It kind of jumps, right? Some markets and then like goes down and then way up. And so that's this point that we're going to make number 2. But the point I want to make here for number 1, the inefficiency, is look at the revenue for a 5-bedroom versus 6-bedroom. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? And a lot of people, when they see that, they dismiss that. When they see anomalies or inefficiencies in the data, they go, well, that doesn't make sense. Therefore, I don't trust it. And I'm not going to study and try to figure out why that is. And if you study this out, what you're going to find, especially in some of these markets that are, they don't have thousands of properties, what you're going to find is that there might be a significantly low supply of 6 bedrooms. So think of inefficiencies, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, in correlation to market saturation. I hear this all the time. Kenny, the market's saturated. We shouldn't look there. And it's saturation is never on a market level. It's always on a bedroom count level, because demand isn't on a market level. It's on a bedroom count level. Sure, 1 million people are going to this market. Well, demand, if we look at revenue, total revenue for that market year over year, it's still growing in almost every single market. So if demand is still growing and it's not going away, then the supply, it's all about the supply. But supply is based off of bedroom count. There's only a certain number of 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms and 4, like whatever, it varies. And the demand for each of those will vary as well. We know that 1s and 2 bedrooms and 3s are the most popular in terms of demand in almost every single market. And they're also the highest supply in every single market too. And so really, when you think of demand and supply, don't think of it as the market demand and supply, think of it per bedroom count. And when you do that, you start studying the data, you'll notice the inefficiencies just right in front of your face in terms of the supply and some of the demand as well. And we can see that here too. Wait, why are the 6 bedrooms making less than the 5 bedrooms? Why is that? And when we go and we start studying this out, we realize, well, in this market, there's only a handful of 6-bedroom properties. There's a ton of 5s and 4s and 3s and 2s and 1s. But there's only a handful and they're all underperforming, or there's only one that's doing really well, because these are averages here. Keep that in mind. And the rest are underperforming, or they're brand new, or there's whatever reason. You figure that out. Go study it. Study why there's these inefficiencies in the data, and it will tell you what you need to do. And when you see this kind of stuff, you realize, well, holy cow, people aren't going to be looking at 6 bedrooms here. They don't have their eye on 6 bedrooms here because it looks like it's making less than 5 bedrooms. Why would you go buy a 6-bedroom if it looks, but in reality, we know that 6 bedrooms can make more. And when we identify the properties that are making more, and we can eliminate the ones that are bringing down the average, and you'll notice the 6-bedroom actually increases in terms of its average revenue. And so, and that will play into the 4 keys when we get to it in a second. But understanding market efficiencies and market saturation on a bedroom count level will help you significantly, will help you find properties a lot easier and what works in markets. You can do this with the supply too. You just go look at the supply of the, I don't have that on here, unfortunately, but, the 5 and 6 bedrooms. How many 5 bedrooms are there? There's probably like 20 in this market. And then there's only like 3 6 bedrooms. There's this huge gap in the supply. So if you have a 6-bedroom, there's still demand for it, obviously, but there's some underperformers, and you can outdo that. And there might be a deal sitting on the market that's a 6-bedroom, price is a 6, that people passed by because it didn't make sense based off of these numbers here. But to dive deeper because you've studied the anomaly. Okay, so Scott's asking about valuation. So valuation, I don't want to, so valuation isn't really in regards to market efficiencies. It could be, and keep in mind, valuation is the prices of homes of short-term rentals in this particular market. So based on what these short-term rentals are currently valued at, this is what their value could be. So typically, this doesn't reflect inventory in the market. So you might see prices like this price higher than others, which could be an efficiency. Go study that out. Go see what's on the market. Go see what the inventory is in this market as well. That's a good point of saying, hey, look, let's look at the efficiencies of the valuation side as well in understanding the prices of short-term rentals in this market. Because it's not just revenue, there's also pricing too, because revenue and pricing give you the ROI. So that's why. But okay, so somebody asked, but how do you know a 6-bedroom will do better within a market? Can you give an example? Great question. So what we're going to do, I will give you an example, but I'll just kind of answer it right now, and then we'll look at an example later, just to kind of move it along, and I'll be covering the same thing anyway. But basically, instead of just looking at the average, I'm going to look at the actual properties in that market. I'm going to look at actual 6-bedrooms in the market. So when I see something like this, I go, hold on, why? I don't say, I don't trust it. I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. Let me turn away from it. I ask why. And then I study the individual data points themselves to determine why this is 96,000 and not. If you only had 4 6-bedroom properties here and 3 started 3 months ago, you have one property doing, let's say a 6-bedroom here is doing 120,000, and the others just started 3 months ago and they've only made 30,000. Well, your average is going to be significantly less because we're pulling an average, right? So, and I mean, it doesn't matter the timeline of these properties, but that break. So we want to eliminate those properties and go, wow, actually, you know what? They're on pace to do 120 as well. We have this one data point here that's saying 120. So in reality, we know 6 bedrooms can do 120. And their valuation might be, significantly lower or higher, whatever that is. I'm not saying it's going to work out in the end, but a lot of investors see this and they run because it doesn't make sense to them. But they're not asking why. They're just saying, I don't get it. And they're turning away. So what I want to challenge you guys to do with this is when you're looking at these data sets and you see data that's weird, especially in a lot of these markets across the country where there's just not that much data, don't run away from it. Study the market out. Study the, quote unquote, the inefficiencies as to why. Try to get an explanation for it from studying that market and the individual data points, meaning the individual properties that were mentioned. So that's going to be obviously really important. Now, here's the other thing too. Here's a really good example of, part 2 of inefficiencies. You can see the revenue increases, that's like 6,000, then 10,000, then 9,000, then jumps up 20,000. So typically, I mean, this can vary too. Sometimes the revenue will peak at a certain bedroom count and then start dropping off in terms of the amount of increase between each one. It's never linear. Don't ever expect the revenue for bedroom counts to be a linear increase in the majority of markets. You want to find the opportunities within. So in this market, this is basically saying bigger is better. Once you hit 5, you should be looking for 5 bedrooms if you can afford it in this market, and going in there and trying to study that out as to why that is. So what I want you guys to do is take away like understanding that when you see things like this, number one, study them out. Don't run away from it. And then when you see opportunities like this, go, hey, that could be an opportunity for 5 bedrooms in this market instead of 4s. If there was a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom for sale and you could afford both, guess what? The 5 bedrooms looking a lot more optimal depending on the price, keep in that mind too. But this is helping you go, maybe I should be targeting 5 bedrooms in this market because there's more demand or value demand. That's important. Not necessarily the number of people, but the value of which those people are willing to pay is more for 5 bedrooms than it is for 4 bedrooms. How does the visitor profile for the area play into this? 2 to 3 bedrooms are definitely more saturated in my area, but statistically, the average visitor party is 2.7. We're going to talk about the guest demographic and avatar, Melissa, on evaluation of the market. So I'll answer that a little bit clearer later, but it's basically understand like, okay, sure, the average visitor, 2.7 people go to that market, but why are they going to that market? What are the group sizes that are larger than that look like? Who's going to the market? Where are they coming from? Like understanding all of that to know, is it important to, increase in bedroom count there or keep it at a small amount? So that's going to be really key and also understanding how the current properties at the higher bedroom counts are performing versus the other ones as well. And like I said, we'll go into that a little bit later as well. Okay, let's talk about unique properties now. So this is basically bringing something new. I think we called it, what did we call it before? Introducing unique things into the market. So really four pieces here. There are luxury properties, and I like to call it so kind of relevant or correlated to what I call 300K revenue grossing properties. There are multi-units, and there are then there's like price ranges for the best deals. So when we look for unique properties in a market, I'm not going to talk about glamping and tents and stuff like that. That is something unique and that is relevant and that can work and that could be a deal. But most people here are looking to buy like houses or condos or townhomes. We're not looking to put up tents and stuff. It works. It works in a lot of markets as long as it can properly be zoned. Please don't think I'm discrediting it. It's just not what a lot of you want to hear. So apologize if you came on here specifically for that. You can use some of the other stuff I'm going to talk about later to learn how to evaluate and underwrite those. But we're going to focus on homes, condos, townhomes, typical properties that most people want. So I want to talk about this luxury property thing and how it relates to this like 300K revenue. So this is where we're going to get into some examples. So I did a study of across the country and I said, show me markets where less than 0.5%, so not 50%, but 0.5. So 0.5% of the properties are generating $300,000 a year. Show me those markets, because those type of there's markets where, think big beach markets, where the homes are, or like, the coast of California, where the homes are millions of dollars. And, obviously these properties need to be generating, hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep on pace with the price of the property. But there are markets that are very affordable, where they have a very small percentage of properties based on data that are generating $300,000 plus. And so what is the correlation and pattern to those that could possibly be implemented in other markets as well? And this has everything to do with luxury properties. And so let's take a look at some examples of, I'm going to show you two markets where I found this in there. I've got kind of like a list, and I probably should have prepped this I know you guys want to know what the list is, but the markets where these, were 0.5% of the current active listings in that market are making $300,000 or more. There's not many, 0.5% is not very many at all. And this isn't like, it can't be more than 0.5%. I wanted it to be less than 0.5%, because these people figured out something right, and we want to understand what that is. And so let's go out of here. And these markets are extremely affordable to be in and to look at. And please, nobody make fun of all the tabs that I have open up here. I know that I get that all the time. Like, you see all my screens. It's like, it's all over the place. But we're going to look at, so this is in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So in Hot Springs, Arkansas, there were a total of, I think, 5 or 6 properties that were generating over $300,000 a year. And the interesting thing with the data behind it is that these properties range from 4 to 6 bedrooms. So there were 4 bedrooms doing over 300, and there were 6 bedrooms like this one doing over 300,000. And they had similar attributes. And this one, I didn't want to like pull up every single Airbnb link, because this one I felt like kind of encompassed everything about that market. But when you look at this property, you look at it and you go, wow, like that's really cool. The lighting, the pool, they even did a putting green. They have this outdoor area and like a game room and all this like really cool stuff. They're on the lake. They did a really good job with their photos. And you think this is like some $1 million mansion that was like bought in or potentially built. But all they did, guys, is they went into this market. And I don't know if we can see it here, but look at the homes next to it. They just took a home that was like average and they turned it into this. They're all in. So this property is going to generate $360,000. It's on track to do that this year. This And this property, they took an average property and turned it into this. They didn't take one that was already like this and did it. They took an average property. They're all in on this property. So I know some of the numbers and got some of the stuff from them. They're all in on this deal at like 1.3 million. So 1.3 million, and that's like, the cost to do the, fix up, buy the property, the land and everything. It's on the lake and all that. Like, some of you are like, okay, well, I can't afford that. And that's okay. Like, we'll talk about some, affordable options as well. But for those of you who can, like, this is what you need to be thinking about. This is an average home that they turned into a $300,000 property. None of the homes over here are doing 300,000. They're doing like 100, maybe 120 to 150 if they're bigger and better. But in reality, they're not doing that. They're doing a third of what this property can do because they turned it into something awesome. So the people who are willing to do that, to make it luxury, to make it look nice, to add these like nice features and stuff and turn it into something, into Hot Springs, Arkansas. We call it the Redneck Riviera. Great market, national park. Typically you think couples, getting away, but it's really not like this fancy market to go to. But there's properties like this in these markets, very affordable markets, that are just crushing it because they've nailed that luxury side and the location of the property, which is one of the 4 keys we'll talk about in a second. Can you use a couple questions? Can you use data like this property that only have 17 reviews? Should you have some caution with those numbers? So first off, this property is not only on Airbnb. So they have like VRBO, they have direct bookings, stuff like that. I have the actual numbers from the owner. And that's like why I'm showing one of these properties. So it's like, hey, look, this is legit. So, but yeah, I mean, you can use the reviews and look, we can see when they actually launched the property and, how, and it's pretty consistent on Airbnb too. So it looks like they started in December of last year. In reality, they started in October, but, they didn't get the bookings on Airbnb yet. But, yeah, I mean, yes, I do. I understand what you're saying and totally understand that. You can check the reviews and also the calendars to see booking behavior as well. Like, okay, do they have blocked off dates? And, do they have available dates? And does this look like normal booking behavior? The answer is yes, it does. This looks like very normal booking behavior. So yes, I believe the numbers here by looking at the reviews and the calendar as well. And that's a very good point. If you see a calendar that's just blocked off, 100% for the next few months, those aren't bookings. So they blocked off their calendar, and that's either skewed the data. But I don't want to. We can talk about that later too and get more detail on that. The point here, though, is let's look at the things that are different about this property versus other properties in this market. And I'm going to show you some other properties in this market real quick. So this is another property in this market. This is a lakefront property. It's a 385. And this is what it looks like. It's on the lake. It's got a little dock. And this is the kitchen. This is Hot Springs, and this is typically what you see here for a lot of listings. Some are remotely updated, where it's not like the kitchen looks like this or the bathrooms, but they're not like that much different in terms of location and the style of the outside of the home and these little things. There's a lot of markets where properties are all like this. Okay. So if you come in and you bring in this proven method of turning it into, like, Bill Faith calls it the super properties. This is super property, right? The data before this house and some of the other houses in this market, there's only like I said, 5 or 6. The data wasn't there. There's a high probability in a lot of other markets, the data is not going to be there to support, a luxury, a really nice property. But when we look at other markets, similar markets, or comparable markets that do have some of those data points, it does support it. And this style and strategy does work regardless of the market. Now, obviously, if there's no major traffic drivers there and it's in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't matter if you make it super nice. You got, use some common sense here. We're looking at markets with over 200 active listings where we can implement the strategy of making it luxury and making it really nice. Now, if we say, okay, Kenny, I don't have a $1.3 million budget. Neither do I, frankly. Let's be honest here. What would I do? Okay, well, I'm going in markets where I'm looking for opportunities that I can nail the location and I can bring a design and decor element into that nobody else has, and also the amenities that nobody else has as well. And once again, I've just hit 3 of the keys, and we'll dive into those in a second. But the idea of the luxury property making and grossing like 3x what normal properties are doing is key here, and something that you guys should consider and is a finding strategy that you can leverage. Another example, Branson, Missouri. Now, Branson's got a lot of properties. It's actually a pretty big market. And, I have some other, there's some other properties here too, but the ones that are doing over 300,000, keep in mind, this property, I think is on it's on a pretty big, it's got big acreage. Doesn't matter though. It has similarities to the other properties as well. Big, nice, luxury, in the right location with the right amenities. It looks really, really nice. You invest in your property and it yields a return. Somebody posted on Instagram, I won't say names, an influencer that said, like, you invest too much into your properties. Like, you invest what you think you should invest, not what people actually want. And you really don't need to invest that much for what people want. And I completely disagree with that, because that's not what gets the return. That gets you the $100,000 mark. That doesn't get you the $300,000 mark. I mean, there's a freaking piano in here. Okay. People at a higher level are going to be wanting stuff like this, who are willing to pay a lot more, is where I'm going for this. So think about that as your strategy. But when we're looking at homes like this, we're going, Kenny, well, that home's, is super expensive. It doesn't matter. Like, just wherever, like any market, doesn't matter what the budget is, but just think, well, that home's going to be expensive and the data doesn't support, this at, we're only seeing properties at 100,000. What quality are those properties at compared to this one? Now, this strategy I'm trying to teach and explain here, hopefully effectively, is definitely more for an person looking for their second, third, or fourth property, not for your first one, because it definitely requires a little bit of subjective research, meaning you're looking in other markets to prove something in this market. But it does work. It definitely does work, and there's plenty of evidence, and we're starting to see it more and more in markets across the country. We're starting to see more and more properties generating $300,000 plus because of these attributes of luxury, the amenities, and then coupled with the location of that property. Okay, let's jump back into it, because I don't want to sit on that one super long, because it's not geared towards everyone again. Let's keep going. So that kind of takes those two out. Let's talk about multi-units real quick. So multi-units, this is a very interesting one. Okay, I'll answer questions about it real quick. The luxury. How do you validate that there's demand for that luxury market in that location? So once again, go to market. So you need traffic drivers first off, and traffic drivers are why people are going to location. So if people are coming, there's a nearby. When I say traffic drivers, I'm talking like, is it on a lake? Is it, does it have some sort of like amusement park or college or city or beach or mountain or river, whatever it needs, like at least 2 traffic drivers there. Okay. So that's big. So people are obviously coming to that market, regardless of, if there's short-term rentals there or not, they're always going to be going there. So that's number 1. But then 2, I'm validating it by looking at comparable markets nearby to see if there are luxury properties there and how they're performing. That's how I'm validating the demand for it, because a lot of these markets don't have it. But if you can find it in similar markets, that'll help you validate the demand for that type of luxury in that area. So, but I mean, to be frank about it, luxury is always like, as long as there's traffic drivers and people are going to these markets, luxury is always in demand. Okay. Sure. It might get hit hardest in terms of like a recession or things like that. But what we're seeing in the short-term rental space is those properties, if they nail the location first and then the quality of the property, always get booked first. They're always first to be booked. They're never second. They're first, because they're nicer, and people want nicer. They want nicer than what they're currently staying in. They don't want to stay in a place that's the same or less than their current home. And that's, I think, a problem with a lot of hosts, is they think about what their situation is, and they furnish and they make properties similar to what they're used to, but they're not focused on the guest or the buyer persona or the guest avatar for that market. So keep that in mind. But these luxury properties, There's a property some good friends of mine are building in Wisconsin. It's a $4.3 million project. It's, I think, 20 bedrooms, sleeps 82 people. It's out in the middle of it's like 4 hours from an airport. And I was like, guys, you are crazy. It's got two it's a luxury property, 100%. Really, really nice property they're building. And I mean, they're going to be making like, they're going to be hosting events and all this other stuff, but they're projecting like $500,000-$600,000 a year, maybe more, depending on what their events can do for this property that isn't in this like highly sought after location in Wisconsin, out of all places. Like, it's on a lake, but it's a super nice property. Luxury's in demand. Don't discredit or discount luxury properties. Okay. One unique finding strategy. Multiple unit properties. I'm going to touch on this one because it's super important, and we'll do it. So multiple unit properties. What I mean by that is there are properties that are like, so I bought a property in Buffalo, New York that was a triplex. Okay. So I had 3 individual units. The year I did this, I listed it as each individual unit as a separate listing. And then I listed the whole house as a single listing. I went from $80,000 a year to $120,000 a year the year that I did this. So you can leverage duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes as short-term individual listings, and then the whole listing as a single house for larger groups that book further out. Make sure you're blocking your dates and doing that consistently, and you can maximize revenue that way. So when you're looking for deals, trying to find deals out in the marketplace, especially urban markets, this is more for people who are looking more urban. Look at these duplexes and triplexes. Sure. Make sure you don't underwrite, a side-by-side as each unit is, a separate house, because they won't make as much as a separate house. But collectively, as an entire house, a 4-bedroom house, that starts to justify the revenue. And then you can fill in the gaps with the individual dates that don't get booked, because typically, a 4-bedroom occupancy is going to be lower than, say, a 2-bedroom. The 2-bedroom can fill in those gaps when the people aren't, there isn't high demand for a 4-bedroom home. So I did this in Buffalo, New York. And like I said, my revenue increased $40,000, and I had 4 separate listings, each of the units, and then the entire house. And it was a massive revenue booster and driver. So when you can look for those type of deals in different markets where you take that's just a duplex. Well, guess what? You can underwrite his entire house or individual units with the entire house as well. And if it pencils out as renting out his entire house, you're going to make more at doing the strategy that I just talked about. So multi-units is an amazing play. We're seeing this with people doing boutique hotels where they're, it's essentially the same idea, right? Like, they have this whole big motel. It used to be a motel, and they have individual rooms, and they're renting out individual rooms. And you can also rent out the entire space or the area. They're doing it, and they're making tons of money. This is just on a smaller scale that you guys can do individually as well. So if you're in a more urban market, or even some vacation markets, I've seen these deals in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I've seen them in Destin and Kissimmee and Gatlinburg, like all these different areas. I've seen these deals before, and they're awesome, where you'll buy like a whole building of, 2-bedroom condos, but then you can rent them out together and maximize the revenue of that. Imagine a group, a family, 2 families. I've heard this before. I've talked to people before. One of my friends is doing this in Panama City Beach with condos. He's buying 2 3-bedroom condos next to each other because he's talked to families there. He goes down there and visits there a lot. That when they go and they visit, they all get condos, and they hate that one family's up on this floor, another family's on this floor, when you can have them right next to each other and rent out the whole thing. They're willing to pay more for that because they have that we're together kind of thing. They don't want to go get the house. They want the condos or whatever. But that's the value of it. Even if you did that with a house, and that was a duplex or whatever, putting that together as a single listing and then separating it out to fill in the gaps. So my friend in Panama City Beach, he's doing 3-bedroom condos. So he's got 2 of them. He's got 3 listings. So one for each of the individual units, and then one for together as a 6-bedroom, which 6 bedrooms make a lot more than 3 bedrooms do. And so that ROI is a lot better for him. He's maximizing that. So that is a unique finding strategy. I've talked about this before in other workshops, so check out other videos. I think they're all on YouTube. and you'll find information about that. Let's keep moving because I'm moving slow. So 500K to 850 price range. What am I talking about? Most deals that I'm seeing today are in this price range. Okay, not $1 million mark. If you come to me and say, Kenny, I want to buy a property for $1 million and I want 20% gross ROI, I'm going to say, good luck. Can't find them. That's where most people are looking for. That's the most common thing. You either want to go below it or you want to go above it. Obviously, you don't want to go, it's harder to go above it if you can't afford it. So below it is best. And this is the best range to finding deals in between $500,000 to $850,000. Okay. We just talked about the 300K. All right. Now, this is the one that I want you guys to understand. We've kind of hit on this really heavy, and we're going to look at an example. Make sure I do this right. Yep. Okay. So there's 4 keys of finding. This is what I want you to understand from this entire workshop, and is location first, quality, design and decor, then value adds. Meaning, if you don't nail the location, people will not choose your place simply because of the location. Not because of how nice it is or it isn't, or the type of amenities you have. They will literally not pick your place because it's not in the right location. Now, when I say location, there's different types of location for different markets, right? So if you're in the beach, you obviously want to be closer to the beach or have views of the water. That's really important for people. If you're in the mountains, you want to have a mountain view. If you're, in Kentucky on the Bourbon Trail, for example, we had some people looking there. You want to be near the distilleries or on the road to the next distillery or whatever that is. Like, you need to be in the right location first, and then these other things will come after. So first, location. My rule of thumb and what I've seen is if you're in the number one location, the best location, these other things aren't as important because you will always be booked first. You'll never be booked second or third unless your place is just, you have terrible reviews and your place is just absolute garbage. But that won't be the case. If you're on this, I know you're going to have a good property. So location, don't ever discount location. Location is key. And that could be in return. And I'm going to show you a property and I'm going to tell you, we're going to analyze it together. And I'm going to show you why location is important. And then one of my major concerns about that property of location as well. And we'll talk about this because it could be a deal breaker. And this is what most people discredit. They fall in love with a house in the middle of nowhere at the bottom of the valley with no views or no, 4 blocks from the beach, or I don't know. I hear all the different stories and they're like, Kenny, it's such a beautiful house. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not in the right location. It will not give you the best returns. It doesn't matter. Oh, well, the price, it doesn't matter. Those properties are getting hit harder than the properties that are in the right locations. All right. I feel very passionate about this one. So if you haven't noticed, but it's so important that you do not discount location when analyzing properties. That is the number one thing you want to look for. And I'm going to show you how to do that to get that right from the beginning in 1 second. Next is quality. When I say quality, I'm talking about the exterior of the home and the interior of the home. Is it updated? What's the outside quality look like? Is it crap? Is it, nice? What's the quality look like? That impacts revenue and can impact based on your market. Now, certain markets, the standards are different. And I'll show you another example of this, like the Poconos, for example. The exterior of the homes are all like pretty old from like the 80s and 90s. And it doesn't matter. People are okay with that. Whereas the interiors need to be updated. However, if we flip to another market, say like North Carolina, Lake Lure or Morrisville, or even like in the Smokies, Dandridge, like markets, all the properties need to be like pretty much new to do really, really well, or like nice, exterior and interior. They need to be cabin-like. They need to have, like the hot tub and views of the water, all these other things. Where like the Poconos, it's like, it doesn't matter about the exterior as much as the interior and being on the lake. Super key about the Poconos. You got to be on the lake there. But we're identifying what works in these markets, and it's different. It can vary market to market. So you don't necessarily have to think, oh, I have to buy this new construction in every single market. That's got to be top of the, no, that doesn't matter. And we'll look at examples. Design and decor. Okay, this obviously can impact revenue, but there's something called diminishing returns, right? So there's no magic point where it's like, well, if I spend $100,000, I'm going to make $100,000 back. You might not. And you really want to be targeted in your design and decor. So what I would do is make sure you understand your guest and buyer persona before you just go buy a bunch of nice furniture or you let the designer go crazy. I'm working with a client right now, and he's like, well, the designer said it's going to be $150,000. And I was like, I want a list of all the stuff she's going to do to justify $150,000, and you're going to get an ROI on that. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking dollars and cents. If I'm going to spend $150,000, I want at least 30% increase in gross revenue from that 150K. And that better be justified by a little bit of data. You know, if she's just going around painting murals in every room, don't necessarily think that justifies it. So we need to have that and understand at a certain point, design and core is very important, but it does diminish, and it can impact revenue in a positive way as well. So like understanding that, but it's part of finding deals. Value adds. When I say value adds, I'm talking about amenities. So think about pools, hot tubs, big value adds, saunas, barrel saunas apparently are getting popular and have an impact. Pickleball courts, EV chargers, these big EV chargers, maybe I'll put that on my iffy. But these big amenities that can impact revenue and impact the deal. If I see that this property added this amenity, it could take the revenue from here to here. And a lot of people aren't doing this in their deal analysis. They just see a property, they put it in a free calculator, and they go, cool, how much is it going to make? And then, oh, it doesn't make that much. Okay, well, I'm going to pass on it. But it's like, well, look, if you add the hot tub or you add the game room, you turn the garage into a game room, or you do, you know, this other thing, it all of a sudden goes from here to here based on the data. Now, a calculator is not going to tell you that. So stop using them. Okay. And like I said, we're going to walk through each of these in the example of how to do this. So let's talk about this and actually do this together. So when you're finding, this is the first thing I want you to do. I talked about some unique strategies earlier with the luxury properties and the multi-units and so on. Like those are unique finding strategies, but this is the main underarching finding strategy, the 4 keys that I want you all to learn and apply and get very good at. Because if you do this, it significantly minimizes the amount of risk you're going to take on with a short-term rental because you know what works well in that market. It's all about studying the market first, then looking for deals after. So let's talk about this buy box. I call it buy box or, buyer criteria, whatever that is. So I've got some examples here of different markets in this buy box. So, and it all revolves around the 4 keys. So number 1, what's the market? Number 2, what's the sub-market in this? And we're going to look at going in STR Insights and actually doing this. Number 3, what's the bedroom count? Then the furnishing quality, the interior quality, exterior quality, the amenities like the value adds that we're talking about, the picture quality of the properties there, and then other factors that might be relevant, like, oh, it's in this particular neighborhood, or it's facing the sun or facing east or whatever. And what we're doing is we're looking, I didn't explain this, we're looking at current top properties in the market. We're looking at top performers in this market by bedroom count and studying them to identify what works in that market first before we actually start trying to find properties. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is we want to see, okay, cool. There's a ton of cool properties here, but why are they performing the way that they're performing? What makes them stand out? And then we're going to write it down. You see, this is a spreadsheet here. So let's actually do an example together. And I want to use an audience example. We're going to pick a random market and we're going to see how this goes. Because I can do this in any market, so it doesn't matter. So somebody from the audience, please comment a market that you're in, and be a market you know very well. And please, I will ask you to comment back and explain some things too, but post your market. So let's see, first one. All right. Kissimmee, Myrtle Beach, I assume that's Phoenix, Gatlinburg. Okay, cool. All right. Well, Kissimmee won. And I think Kissimmee is going to be a better example. Obviously a lot of the buy box material in Myrtle Beach is going to be on the beach, but that's not necessarily true though. It's by community, it's by waterfront, being on the canals and all those other things too in Myrtle is important. Having views of the water is just as important as just being on the beach. Bardstown, Kentucky, Fairview. We're going to look at a property in Fairview, Zach, so you're going to get the maximum benefit of this. But let's actually do, but Kissimmee was first. Somebody on Facebook put Kissimmee, and that's fine. So let's actually go to, I'm going to duplicate this real quick, and I'm going to steal this guy. So we're going to go and, I actually have I could use this example here. I already have this like laid out here. The thing about buy boxes is there's so many you can create for a single market. It's not just about bedroom count. It's about the area. It's about the resorts. It's about all these different things. And you're studying them out to understand what works in them. Someone said Poconos and Gatlinburg. Here you go. Here's some buy boxes there. So let's just do another one in Kissimmee. And we're going to start there. So the first thing we need to do when we create a buy box is we need to understand a budget. So what we're trying to target in terms of affordability, meaning I need to know a bedroom count I'm trying to target. So for example, if I'm looking at, let's say, I'll say 4 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms in Kissimmee are kind of risky. Like 2 bedrooms are doing better than 3s in terms of revenue, which is kind of crazy. And then 4 bedrooms are just like doing above those. Remember, inefficiencies in the market. Study those out. Okay, let's go to, I duplicated. All right, perfect. So we got Kissimmee, and I'm going to put that in STR Insights. So this is what the market profile dashboard looks like here. And what we want to do is we're going to use this revenue percentile slider. But first, I'm going to select 2 bedrooms. Okay. This down here, I don't care about this table. I hardly ever use it, to be frank. It's there and helpful to understand averages and things like that and valuations. But when studying a buy box, we don't need to know averages. We want to understand what's performing the best and where and why. That's really what you want to know, is studying the data points as to why. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of this. So I've got the 2 bedrooms here. Now I'm going to use this revenue percentile slider. This is probably the coolest feature of the tool, and I use this all the time to study a market. So the first thing I'm going to do is slide it to the left and see the average and above properties. Where are they located for 2 bedrooms? So it looks like they're all located in these zip codes. Essentially all over, there's some down here, but essentially all over Kissimmee. But let's be clear. Now we're picking up some over here, and that's probably because Airbnb, how they track they say a property, it's within a radius, it's not within the exact location. So that's why you see some properties that are in different locations outside of the zip boundaries. So don't panic when you see that. So what we want to do is we want to identify what works best for 2 bedrooms and where. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this revenue percentile slider, and I'm going to look at the clusters. These are all clusters, by the way, and they're going to shrink. Okay. And so I'm going to slide all the way to the 95th. And depending on how many properties there are is how far, you need to go. If there's not that many properties in your market, you might only go to 75th or 80th. That just depends. So there's a lot here in Kissimmee, and we have clusters all over the place. So this is really interesting. Keep in mind, Disney World is over here. Okay. So going back here, if I didn't know Disney World was over there, because let's pretend we're looking at a new market, right? Some of you didn't know Disney World was over there. There's properties all over the place. So it's more important what the data is telling me, without even telling me like flat out, the closer I am to Disney World, the higher the revenue. Okay. So that's super important to note. Like when you're looking at any market, especially a market you don't know anything about. Yeah, sure, you didn't know Disney World, but you're like, why are there more properties over here than there were over here? These are all gone. And as you start to study the market, you'll realize, hey, this is actually in Disney World, or near Disney World, which is in like Lake Buena Vista. All right. So I'm going to target. Now there's clusters all over the place. And as you start to study the market, you'll understand why. There's resorts, condos all over the place in this area. And so this one obviously has the most. So, and now I'm going to figure out, okay, why is that? So there's some over here, but there's a lot right here. So what is this, what is this particular resort? Why is that one special? Okay, so it's called Story Lake, and it's a more luxurious, hey, luxury. Remember I talked about that, and a lower price point, by the way, especially here. But I mean, it just has a lot more going on. And when you end up studying this market in Kissimmee, especially on 2 bedrooms, what you find for condos, these are condos, by the way, what you'll find is that this resort has a lazy river, has more features, has a lot more going on, and a lot more people like to go to it, and its location is important. So we know that the resort amenities are important. We know that the location is important, and we know that the quality of the property is really important as well. Okay. I can verify that by going and saying, okay, cool. I've looked at that market or that little section there. Let me look at, go back out and let's find, yeah. So like this one has 7. Okay. This is another resort. It's called Westgate. All right. And some properties are making similar in revenue as well. And this one, look at all that. Like it's not as nice. And that's probably why there's not as many properties there. But we're able to figure that out and document that. And that's why in this buy box here, I have Story Lake as a sub-market within Kissimmee. And we were targeting 4 bedrooms. And the quality of the furnishings were medium. They weren't like amazing, but the interior, exterior qualities were pretty good too. They're all updated. They look nice. But the important amenities are the resort amenities for this location. Okay. So if I wanted it now, that's for 2 bedrooms. Let's back out of this. And let's say, cause I wanted a 6 or a 7 bedroom, which is going to be a completely different market. So if we look at the entire scale again, we've got, properties all over the place. And what we're going to do is just, let me clear the zip code real quick so we're not missing anything. So there's a lot of properties over here, but as I scroll in, we have our clusters. So we have some there, we have some here and some here. So I'm really curious. I don't know. And for those of you who don't know Kissimmee Reunion area, let's check that out. There's a lot of properties. Hey, this isn't necessarily the closest to Disney. So why are these properties doing the best? And going in and studying, okay, let me click into these individual data points or properties and understanding why these properties are doing better than the other ones. Okay, they have pools, they look really nice, they're themed out, whatever that is, and documenting that. And let me back out too, and saying, okay, let me compare it to this property over here that's only making 110,000, and this is probably it's a 6-bedroom condo. Okay, well that's interesting. Let's go over here and select one of these that's making significantly less. So, okay, yeah, this is a perfect example. Here's a 7-bedroom. Obviously, the pictures are terrible, but here's a 7-bedroom, slightly themed, if you could call it that, versus, another 7-bedroom here. Like, we see the difference. So we're understanding not only location, but the quality, the amenities, and the quality amenities. What was the other thing? I already forgot it. Design and decor. There we go. Of what is necessary to be successful in this market. I don't care about revenue yet. I'm not looking at this property made 71,000 and this one made, 200,000. Like, sure, that's great to know, but I just need to know the difference. Why and where are these properties that are successful at? And writing that down into a spreadsheet. You will probably have, for every single market, depending on the size, you'll probably have between 5 to 10 different buy boxes for every single bedroom count. And even for certain bedroom counts, like say Gatlinburg, there's certain pockets that perform differently. So understanding what works in those pockets and where, like being outside of Gatlinburg and like Wares Valley with the views and everything versus being inside the downtown area where all the activities and family things are, we know those are 2 sub-markets within. Those are 2 separate buy boxes for every single bedroom count. And we need to study those out before we just start blanketly looking in a market for properties. Because what you're going to find is even then, what are the prices, home prices of those properties that are for sale today in each of these buy boxes? Because that'll make or break the deal. And what you'll find is that, hey, actually, you know what? The Story Lake properties, they're overpriced. It's just not going to work. The ROI isn't there. It's not going to work. So I got to find the next one. But you'll have different ways to know that instead of just, that's a really cool property in Story Lake. Let me figure out how much revenue it's going to make. This is going to save you so much time in this process. I promise you, if you do this, you take the time to do this, you will find deals so much faster than wasting time looking at all these bad deals and going, oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Oh, nothing pencils out today because the way you're looking for properties. Somebody asked, are all these revenue amounts based on Airbnb bookings only? It does include other platforms and booking revenue, to answer that question very quickly. So anyway, we want to identify the buy box of the market, what works in the markets first, and then dive in and start looking at properties. Okay, I want to keep moving here because I spent a lot of time on this, and we have some ways to go. Let's go into evaluating. Present, yes. Okay, so now that you think you found a property, what we want to do is we want to evaluate. So we're going to stay logical when we evaluate, meaning we don't want to tell ourselves a story, meaning we don't want to fall in love with a property because it's so nice and it's in this market that we've always wanted to be in and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I want it to be very logical. Honestly, if any of you guys send me a property or if any of you have worked with me before and evaluating properties for you, I'm very logical about it. And you probably get a sense for that because a lot of times I'm like, that's not a good deal. And then I explain why. Like, I'm very straightforward with it because I'm looking at it from a logical lens. Now, short-term real estate investing is logical and emotional, but when we're evaluating, we need to make sure we remove that emotional side so we stay logical and we make a prudent financial decision. So don't tell yourself a story. If you find yourself trying to justify things, that's a red flag. Okay. Next, this is the guest avatar. This is what I'm talking about. And let's talk about this like, oh, the 2.7 average guests. So understand who is coming to the market and why they're coming to the market. Okay. Looking at an average, like, oh, the average guest size here is 2.7 is kind of helpful, but it isn't remotely helpful because it doesn't tell you how many of the other larger guest sizes are actually coming. So go to the market or call the places where people are going to in this particular market. Like if they're going to a ski resort or amusement park, asking the questions, looking it up. Hey, how many group sizes do you typically have that are over this or that? Go look at the current properties of that bedroom count, the higher bedroom count. Look at the reviews. What type of people, what are people saying in the reviews? People don't do enough research on that front. That's the studying research you do before you look at the properties for sale. Understand, because you'll see, oh, my family came. It was a family reunion, or two families came together, or, we on the larger properties I'm speaking specifically about, or, my church group, or all these different scenarios. You'll start to pick up on trends of the true demand and group sizes based off the reviews that people are leaving. Use the reviews to determine group size and also learn about the buyer persona or the guest avatar. What do they love about the market? What do they love about that property? Is it because it's family friendly? Family friendly is really important in a lot of like places where people can see their families at and gather and be together. They love those type of properties, but they might love them more in one market than another. It might be more couple driven, and maybe tiny homes are a better play than buying, a 5-bedroom property. So study the reviews of active listings and the property to understand the guest avatar for your market. Finally, following a checklist. So what we want to do is when we're evaluating a property, we want to go through a checklist of things. If a red flag appears, we either set the property aside or we have to dive in and try to eliminate that red flag to make sure there is no actual red flag. So what I mean by that is, let me go through this. So the number one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at location of the property. If it's not in a good location, red flag, it's done. I don't move on. I don't look at the revenue. I don't look at the quality. I don't look at the competition. I don't look at anything else. If you've done your buy box correctly, you understand the value of location and why it's important. Okay. And if it's a red flag out the gate, stop wasting your time on that deal because it ain't a deal. Okay. That's how you're going to spend less time on bad deals and more time evaluating good deals is by going through a checklist of priority of things that are important for a property. So number one, location. Number two, quality of the property. All right. If you're in, we're going to look at an example in North Carolina. So I'm going to start talking about Fairview, North Carolina in this cabin. I'm going to show you North Carolina. So in North Carolina, the buy box criteria for Fairview is, you got to have views and you need a cabin, like a cabin, like you would see in the Smokies or whatever. Okay, that's pretty common. And it needs to be updated, right? It needs to be nicer and newer. So when I'm looking for properties there, I'm looking for properties that have a view, the location of the property, The geographical location, is it here or there, whatever, it's not as important as the type of view is. So I'm putting more weight on the view of the property in this particular market that we're going to look at than the particular like geographical location. Oh, is it on Highway 8 or Highway 4? It doesn't matter. Okay. So location, meaning views, the quality of the property, meaning like it needs to be a cabin and it needs to be updated on the interior. And then, okay, well, if I'm checking these boxes when I'm evaluating a particular property, I then look at the competition. What does the competition have that, and what are they doing well? And what revenue are they generating? And what makes them stand out from the others? And what you're going to find is a tier system. I wish I had time to do this. I don't, unfortunately. Maybe I'll do another workshop on this. I didn't realize all these would take this long. But there's a tier system for every single market for every bedroom count, meaning tier 1 are your top performers, and there's a reason why they're the top performers. Figure out why. Tier 2 is your average performers, or your, like, say, 75th percentile performers. They're performing the way they are. Could be pictures, could be location, could be, pricing, dynamic pricing, could be the reviews. I don't know. Figure that out in your market. And then tier 3 are your bottom feeders. Okay. There's always 3 tiers in a market. Most, like big markets, they might have 4, but typically 9 times out of 10, most markets will have 3 big tiers. Your top performers, and these properties have these specific attributes. The middle tier, they have these specific attributes. And then bottom feeders, they have these specific attributes. Don't go, oh, well, they're a property management company, I could beat them. That's not necessarily the case most of the time today. Look at the attributes of the property based on the 4 keys: location, quality, design and decor, and amenities or value adds. So understand your competition and then start looking at the revenue. And the tiers will have revenue, right? So the top performers will be between, say, 100 and 120,000. The middle will be between 80 and 100. The bottom will be between 40 and 60. And figure out what those revenue ranges are. Then take the property in question and evaluate it based off of the tiers. Do I see it as a top tier, meaning does it have the same attributes, or can it have the same attributes and characteristics of the top performing properties in tier 1 or tier 2, or is it more of a tier 3? Okay. Then you evaluate revenue. If there is a red flag about this property before you get to revenue, throw it out. It's not a good deal. Move on from there. All right. This is going to be the biggest thing that a lot of people mess up on. They go straight to revenue and then they miss out on all these other things, and they're inviting risk and potential issues to arise in the future where they don't make as much money as they thought. And I get the magical question all the time. Hey, Kenny, pre-COVID or post-COVID, how do I determine revenue based off pre-COVID or post-COVID? And honestly, if you've done this checklist right, you've done your buy box criteria right, this isn't really as big of an issue. Now, I'm going to show you some things, and we're going to like I said, we're going to take a look at a deal. We're going to talk about it from different angles. And I'm going to show you the conservative approach to be able to say, oh yeah, pre-COVID, post-COVID, because to be frank about it, 2023 is still better than 2019 in the majority of markets. Some people are like, oh, my property was better in 2019. Some people are like, I'm doing way better. I personally am doing better than I was in 2019 and in 2023. I'm doing better in 2023 than 2019. So it's not the same as post-COVID, but it's not the same as pre-COVID, but it wasn't the same as 2021 and 2022 either. So it's in this like weird middle. So how do you determine the revenue of that? And how do I understand why that's important and how to calculate that for every property? So let's look at an example, but there's 3 things I want you to keep in mind with this. Number 1, I never look at revenue as a set number for a property. When people ask me how much a property is going to make, I usually tell them a range. Depending on the size of the property and the amount, it could be a range of $10,000 to $20,000. So I'll say, it'll make between 60 to 70, depending on factors. Never look at revenue as a set number. You're never going to hit a set number. You should never expect that. I've never personally said, oh, this property is going to generate 100,000, and I hit it dead on at 100,000. Okay. If you don't expect to do that, why are you saying a set number? Look at a range and run and underwrite your deal at the different levels. If it pencils out at your conservative estimate, then it's going to be a deal. And everything above that is going to be the cherry on top. Never run it solely on the best case scenario. And that's going to be something we'll talk about in a second. Okay. Gross versus ADR occupancy. And I don't mean this to be offensive to anybody, but people who send me, hey, Kenny, I think this property is going to make $1,000 a night. I don't know what that means in terms of performance. I really don't. Like, that sounds good, but how many nights is that going to be? Like, my ADR right now for my Watkins Glen property is like $1,300. And I bought that sucker it's a $350,000 property. A lot of people hearing that are doing backflips going, Kenny, like, I want this one. It's a great deal, but during the wintertime, the ADR is like $300 a night. So at what point is the crossover? I don't care about ADR and occupancy for a market. I care all about gross. So think about gross yearly revenue when you're evaluating and determining revenue of a property, instead of just going, oh, what's the ADR and what's the occupancy? Because it's seasonal. This doesn't take into account seasonality if you just look at the average. It is important later on, but when we're determining the value, if a deal is a good deal or a bad deal, use gross revenue. Who cares about ADR and occupancy? And you can back into gross revenue, and we'll look at a pro forma that uses ADR and occupancy to determine revenue. And I'll show you exactly why I'm going to make up numbers for ADR and occupancy, because I don't care. I know what the revenue is going to be. So I'll work backwards from there. And then as I start to understand seasonality of the market, I'll put in true occupancy and true ADR, but the revenue will be the same number. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Now, if you're living off a property month to month and you need to know, then yeah, but I would break it out month to month, because it will vary month to month. It's never just going to be some average. Always, always, always understand that properties revenue is going to be on those market tiers 1, 2, and 3, and then revenue is on a range. All right, let's dive into an example of evaluating a property. Okay, somebody asked, like, yeah, what's driving the demand? Can we expect it to continue? That's the right question. That's a very good question, and that's where you do a lot of Google research. The national parks have a great example of this, where you can see growth, and then there's a COVID bump, and then some of them dropped off. If it isn't inclining over time pre-COVID, then you shouldn't expect demand. It could just continue to increase just because of COVID. So we're seeing that like in the Blue Ridge Mountains. If you go look at the national parks data for Blue Ridge, you'll see it was actually pretty stagnant and declining. And then COVID happened and everything increased. And then now after, it's going back to where it was before. So that's helpful in knowing the demand for the market as well. Thank you for mentioning that, Nisha. Gross revenue on STR Insights does not include cleaning fees or other fees. That is correct. And AirDNA includes all revenue, including cleaning. Correct. I don't honestly know that. Maybe Shannon, we can ask Jamie. I know he's in my Facebook group. He might not know that either, but I know AirDNA does include cleaning fees, but I don't think they include other fees that are in that too. I don't know, because I don't work for them, so I have no idea, but I'm assuming it's just cleaning. We don't do cleaning because that's an additional income and expense that you have to figure out separately and can vary property to property. So that's why we personally don't do it. Let's do an example evaluating. All right. So I was going to walk you through finding a market. In fact, or skipped. What did I do wrong here? Oh, okay. So let's do an evaluation method, and I'm going to show you finding a deal and evaluating that all the way to the underwriting process in STR Insights. So let's say that you talked to Kenny, and Kenny said, hey, you should check out Western North Carolina, or just North Carolina in general. So you go over and you're in STR Insights and you're like, okay, cool. Like, what markets are there? And tell me about the data there. So you can go into STR Insights map view, and there's, Western North Carolina is Asheville area. And I'm kind of flying through this for the sake of time, but here's this market. You can use filters and say, okay, I don't want to be in small markets. I only want to be, say, medium or large markets. I'm just going to use medium here for an example. And you can see like the results, and you can actually compare the markets based off the ROI and then click into their profiles. So the one I want to show in this example here is Fairview. So Western North Carolina, like all these markets around here, are pretty decent size, and they're in the mountains. In the buy boxes, views, right? So the one market I want to look at is Fairview, and I'm just going to click the profile, and we're going to analyze this market. So there's a property. So knowing that we need views in the mountains and they need to be cabin-like homes, we can go into Zillow and create our buy box material. So if I go into Zillow and I say, okay, cool, my budget, say, is $800,000. And I'm only looking for houses. I'm not looking for anything else. What's in Fairview for sale that could be a good deal? So this is where you save time. Location, remember views, cabin like. Okay, do these properties have views? Are they cabin like? No, they're not. Okay, moving on. Looking. Holy cow. Hey, here are two that could be good. And let's click into them. So we clicked into this property here. That's listed at 645. Now that you understand the buy box, this is where you take advantage and where a lot of people miss out on. This property is listed as a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. But when I look through the pictures, this is pretty common in North Carolina, by the way. When I look through the pictures, so yes, it has an amazing view and it is a cabin. So check. Location, good. No red flags there. The interior, updated, outside of the home. I think it was built in 2018. Yep. All right, cool. So it's a new home. It's a new build almost. When you start counting rooms, I know there's like they have like some bed frames here, 1, 2, and then they have like some rooms, and that kind of looks like a potential game room, but like this one, 3, there's like an office space with a bathroom, and then like you have this space too, and I don't know what this is. There looks like there's 4 bedrooms here. There probably is 4 bedrooms. There's 3 bedrooms and an office. It's probably legally they can only list it, and this happens all the time in North Carolina, by the way. Legally, they can only list it as a 3-bedroom because the septic or whatever is only for 3 bedrooms. But in reality, you can do it as 4 for a short-term rental. Like that's totally fine. That's very common in North Carolina. So however, this house is priced at a 3-bedroom, not a 4-bedroom. So, hey, if I hadn't done my research and studying the market and studying the property, knowing what to look for first, I'd be looking through all the bad deals and I might not even make it to this one before realizing, hey, this actually has 4 bedrooms instead of 3, potentially. So this has amazing views. It's a new build. And something else I really like about this market is this property is obviously a residential home at one point that you can turn into a short-term rental. Because guess what? There are, where does it say? No HOA. That's nice. I know a lot of you are like, man, I wish I feel you. So there's a lot of benefits here looking at this property. And you see, I'm going through the checklist, right? I have this artificial checklist. I have it in my head. I should probably have it next to me as I'm going through here. But I'm checking those boxes before I even get to revenue, all right? I'm not falling in love with this property. I'm just checking the important logical boxes that need to be checked to know that this is a potential good deal. Now that I'm all the way down the list, and let's assume I've already done the competitive analysis. I'm understanding the different tier levels. Let me look at some properties in this market. Going back here and let's just do 3 bedrooms. So I want to set some sort of, I want to be conservative here. And I want to look at 3 bedrooms and I'm going to look in this market and I'm going to show you this I'm kind of skipping through the process here because there's quite a few 3 bedrooms here, but I want to show you an actual comparable. So this is a new property with views. It's got nice views. Now this is a winter shot. So they've gotten, obviously these trees fill up in the summertime. So these are partial views. So they're not as nice as, the true, this is a summer shot with actual, like the trees full bloomed or whatever, full grown. And so, but this is a really nice property and could technically be considered a comp. It's got a hot tub and all these other things. And this property generated $98,000. Okay. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The property we're looking at is a 3-bedroom, technically 4, 3-bath. I think 2 full baths and 1.5 baths. So it's got that additional like half bathroom that could be used as well. So this would be a fair comp, in my opinion. All right. People might feel differently for whatever reason, and we can talk about it offline if you want. But this cabin does look a little bit newer, but I mean, in reality, that's kind of like, nitpicking there because it has the main traffic driver attraction, which are the views and the quality of the property. Okay. Now it does have some value adds. So you can't just go buy this property and then without a hot tub and expect it to, do whatever this. So this property did $98,000. So I want to move over to okay, cool. Wow. 98,000 off of if we're just saying asking price, which you could probably get it for less. 98,000 divided by your asking price is 645 gives us a 15.1% gross ROI. So this means that this is potentially a good deal, depending on the type of loan that you do and your criteria for what a good deal is. You know, this is debatable, I guess. But for me, I'm looking for deals that are minimum 15% or greater. So this is starting to check a lot of the boxes. But if it ever hits a red flag, I'm going to stop and move on to the next property. But I wanted to show you one that I'm actually like, hey, this could be a good deal. This is okay. So Brad asked, how do we determine the tiers in the market? So let me briefly do that because that's really important if you don't understand it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this revenue percentile slider and move it to 50, right? And you're going to look at properties. So here's a 3-bed, 2-bath that only did 43. And we're going to click into this one. Okay. And we're going to look at this and go, what are the attributes of this particular property that justified only making $43,000 versus the attributes of the other property that made $98,000? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, okay, so we can tell that it doesn't, like, this is a nice home, but they took bad pictures. Remember the buy box criteria: location, furnishing quality, interior, exterior quality, and the amenities. So this property, did it have, I don't think it, did it have a hot tub? It obviously doesn't have views. The picture quality is pretty low, and the furnishings are pretty iffy, and it's like a trailer, not kind of, but it's really not that great. There's no views there, which is the main traffic driver there. And if we've done our buy box criteria, we understand what's important and why this property is a lower tier. I would put this one at maybe tier 3 instead of a tier 2. We can look at other properties. And that's okay. That's probably all right. Here's probably middle of the road. Okay. Wow, this is a nicer property. But remember what the important Kenny's number one rule: location, location, location. This is a nice property, and they've done a really good job with design, decor. Perfect example of this. But look at their view. It's in the trees. They don't have a view. That's the most important thing. So even though this is a nice property and they've done a really good job, it's only making $63,000 a year. Okay. And that's a second tier. That would probably be tier 2. But tier 1 is going to be a property like this with amazing views. And so knowing that now, by only looking at 3 properties, I would encourage you to look at a lot more than 3 properties to do this. Knowing this now, when we look at this house, where do we see this property falling? That's a really solid, very great view of this product, like, and everything too. If you imagine putting a nice big hot tub on, it looks like there could be one right there. You could put one right there. Putting a hot tub on there, or even down below, there might be, you could put something down there. I was talking to somebody, they were talking about even putting like a plunge pool or making it really, really nice, because 4 bedrooms do like 120,000, 98,000, because we're only running off 3. So that's how you're seeing it. And you're going, holy cow, like, when you put this property in a calculator, I think it said it only makes like 50,000. I looked it up before that. But looking at the data points and understanding the tier levels, do we think this property is only going to make 50,000? I think it's going to make around 100 or more potentially. And so now, this is, so guys, I want to be clear on this. I believe this is a potential deal. Now, we're going to underwrite this in a second, but I want to be careful about one thing here. There's one red flag that I caught that could actually kill the deal. And this is where we need to stay logical, not emotional, because even though those views are sexy, this road is not. And this could be a deal killer. If cars can't get up there in the wintertime, which it doesn't snow that much there, but this could be really steep. And it might not be fun to drive up or hard to get to or whatever that is. But that's a question you ask the realtor. This isn't a question, the data is going to, no, we can't determine that based off pictures. But we're checking all the boxes, and when we hit something, we go, okay, I need to understand this more. So the only concern I have as of right now for this potential deal that I will put in the comments for you guys, and I guess it's not going to go everywhere, but is this gradient. So these are the type of things we're finding our clients with our property finder service too, is deals like this where we're identifying the buy box criteria first and knowing what markets to look into. And then we look for deals like this. And this has been on the market for 2 weeks now too. And the reason why is because a lot of investors are just taking the address and plugging it into a calculator, and it only says 50,000. They're like, oh, it's overpriced. You're like, well, are you doing the other research? And they're not. So take advantage of this kind of this strategy here, guys, because that's a lot of these deals, like I'm saying, the good ones are on the market for 30, 40, 50 days even, that people are passing by because they're not doing that research. Okay, yeah, I just saw it posted like 1,000 times. The address there to all the different outlets. Okay, let's move. I've got 10 minutes. And I want to move to the underwriting side of things because that is just as important. Okay, so we did evaluating. I don't know where we're at here. Let's just go back to present. Okay, underwriting. Number one, same thing with evaluation. Don't tell yourself a story and don't run one scenario. I see it all the time, and everybody runs the best case scenario, and it's like, don't do that. When we talk about COVID and pre-COVID and what the number should be, I always run a range of 10 to 15%, meaning between, X and Y kind of thing. So if we take this property and I believe it can do $100,000, I'm going to take a 10% delta of that to account for post-COVID at the extreme side of it and say, okay, what's it going to do at 85 or 90,000? Does the deal still pencil out? And if it does, then okay, yeah, sure. If anything after that is going to make sense and make me money too, then yes, this is starting to be a lot more attractive. So really, in reality, you should take about a 10 to 15% delta or, subtraction from the percentage of whatever that property is doing and run that number. And if it doesn't hit at that, if it doesn't break even at that number, I would be cautious. You're taking on some risk, meaning you're hoping that all the things are going to come into play. But what if you missed a month? What if you missed 2 months? What if there was a fire? What if there are all these other things that happen that would slow your progress down? Could it still break even? Would it still break even? It really depends. So that's why I'm doing the 10 to 15% rule, where I just take whatever I think it could do on the conservative side, removing 10 or 15%. And if it still pencils out at break even point, yes, I pursue it further. So that's my personal rule of thumb to help minimize risk. There isn't a set best way to do it. It's really up to you, but I recommend doing that. I recommend applying that. Cyrus said, hey, Kenny, but haven't there been some markets where revenue has dropped even more than 10%? How do you review only the recent month's revenue for any property versus an annual? Yeah, so that's a good point. So a couple things with that. Number one, we are at a point in time where we've got at least 6 months of 2023 revenue. So I understand what you're saying, but to kind of counter that in a lazy way, I guess, too, is to say like a lot of that's starting to already be baked in. Most markets aren't seeing more than a 15% dip. It's a lot of markets that we know about, like the Blue Ridge Mountains and Broken Bow and these other markets where it's like there's not this big main traffic driver. And if you say hiking is a traffic driver, that is not a main traffic driver for a particular vacation rental market. It's great, but it's not the main one for these markets. So that's like those markets are seeing about a 20% dip, but everything else is seeing between 10 to 15 for the most part. Some markets are actually increasing, and we can have a conversation about that another day, which markets are increasing. I put out a video about emerging markets. Go watch those. Those are some increasing markets. So not everywhere is getting a hit, but more importantly, it's not about the market taking a hit. It's about the properties taking a hit too. Not all properties are taking a hit. Some properties are doing better than they were doing last year versus this year. And if we've done our proper research in the buy box and the 4 keys of finding, the probability that you're going to take a huge hit on this property in year 1 for whatever downturn there is going to be significantly low because you're nailing the location, the quality of the property, the design decor, and the amenities. So don't get caught up in this, oh, well, how do I know in the numbers and all these other things? Like, do the conservative estimates, do the 10 to 15% rule, and you'll be fine. That's my recommendation. And obviously, Cyrus, you can send it to me too, and I'll take a look and let you know and give you my stamp of approval. So we want to be realistic. We want to use percentages. So when we're underwriting deals, I want to see percentages. I'm going to show you a pro forma. I'm going to show you a bad one with the deal we just looked at, and then a good one, and talk about what was missing and why. And then I'm going to show you some common mistakes investors make. So let's look at the example. So this property here, that's 645,000. Now, keep in mind, you can go, and I would recommend doing this. I would look at 4-bedroom property, and this is a decent size home, like 2,500 square feet, almost 2,600. It could be a 4-bedroom easily. So this property, it's pretty conservative, say 98,000. It could probably do more than that with the right amenities added to it as well. But let's underwrite it for simplicity's sake at $98,000 a year or around there. So here's performer number one. And I want to show you why it's important to include percentages and the other aspects to get it right from the beginning. So what I mean by percentages is total expenses, your debt service, and your NOI are going to make up a percentage of the total revenue earned. So if we're looking at the total income or total revenue, we put 99 to 98, whatever it is, okay, based off ADR and occupancy. This is where, sure, well, Kenny, you said you only care about total income, not ADR and occupancy. This is where I literally just plug in these numbers to get until I get to the right point of 99,000. And then as I break things down further, I'll eventually put these correct numbers in for what they truly are, but they're going to equal the same number that I'm projecting. So don't get caught all up in that. In this example, I'm putting a cleaning fee of $250, and it's going to be called a pass-through, meaning I'm making $250 and it's income, but I'm also expensing $250 and I'm passing that money to my cleaners. So it's the cleaning costs or break even, and it doesn't matter. So here are the other fees. Now, okay, cool. Well, this looks really great. 600. So we did a closing cost of 3%, which is average in North Carolina. We did a 20% loan. You can change this, and obviously numbers will change. We're going to say it needs about $50,000 in furnishings. The hot tub, you can get 0% down and 0% financing there as well. And you can do that in a lot of markets. Poconos, I just did that in my property in Watkins Glen, 0% down and 0% financing for 5 years. How awesome is that? So the hot tub will pay itself from guests. Here's all my expenses. And then I'm breaking everything down here on a monthly to yearly basis. And then I get a net cash flow. And then here's all the other numbers with that. Now, here's where we're off. So if you just sent me and didn't include the percentage column, be like, okay, yeah. And I have to do some math to figure out things because my expenses are a little low. Expenses typically for most properties of the income will float between 35 to 50% on average. All of my properties are around 42 to 46, depending on the property. Okay. But most properties we underwrite, we're seeing between 35 to 50% of the income is killed in expenses. And that's pretty normal. So when I see a percentage of 30%, that means I've done something wrong. I miscalculated an expense. All right. So that's too low. And I've seen a time, most people, yeah, Brandon, if you want to reach out to me, I can help you out with this calculator, this pro forma. Most people will not look at this. They will not look at the percentage, and they'll mess up later on. I get it. I hear it all the time. Oh, the expenses, they ended up being this, and in reality, it was a lot higher than we thought in expenses. You don't want to be that. You want to overestimate what the expenses need to be. So let's take a look at this. What do we think is wrong here? So the big ones are going to be insurance, utilities, taxes, and other fees. They're going to eat this up. So the insurance, believe it or not, in North Carolina is pretty low. And this is pretty comparable. Property taxes as well. I looked up at this property. This is pretty comparable as well. So where did we mess up? So we messed up. Utilities seem pretty low, 150 on a 3 or 4 bedroom, especially with a hot tub. That ain't going to be it. So I would probably budget in probably $400 a month on average just to be safe. And then also other fees. So if you've got a hot tub, you have trash, pest control, lawn service, all snow removal, all these other things, you need to incorporate that in on a monthly basis. Those are the things that people forget about. Also, tech fee. I've got this in here too. I spend about $60 to $70 a month on technology, Price Labs, Rank Breeze, whatever you use for your technology, Hospitable, any of those things. It all adds up. STR Insights, whatever it is, it can add up on a monthly basis. So all these different things will make or break a deal. So in this case, you're like, oh, wow, okay, that's not too bad. But if we move forward and we say, okay, actually, your expenses are a little off, and we make the adjustment to the expenses, what we'll find is that at a 35% expense rate, and we've made the corrections to the expenses, I put utilities at 450. That might be high, but that's could be fair. And then household supplies, I increased that up to 100 with trash and all the other things involved. Pool and hot tub, 200, just in case. I don't know what the lawn service fees will be, so that's why I put it to 200. But this is very conservative. And so these are like very conservative fees. If I'm missing something, please feel free to call me out and put it in the comments. Happy to adjust things. But this makes things look different. And if you're looking at the numbers now, the cash flow is only at 32,000, whereas before it is self-managed, Stephanie. So it was 37,000. So there's a difference of $5,000, 16.818% cash on cash return. Not the best of deals, but pretty decent. And that's assuming that, once again, we're only at 98,000 and we're putting in $50,000 in furnishings and other things into the property and doing some other stuff. So it is worth pursuing in different strategies in terms of, okay, well, what if it makes more? What's that going to be? But on the conservative side, I feel pretty good about this. I would run the numbers. So I'm always going to run a good, better, best scenario, or essentially worst case, middle, like average case, and then best case scenario. So worst case, I would take 10 to 15% of this. So 85, 90,000, still see if this thing pencils out. And if it does, okay, yeah, I kind of like it. Let's move forward and dive deeper. I would dive deeper, especially into the fact that this property could be a 4-bedroom. If that's the case, and you can add a hot tub and potentially some other things, I think this thing could do 120, even 130, just to throw that out there. So I'm not going to do that for you guys in terms of research on this call, but you're welcome to take this potential deal. Call Tyler Kuhn, who's the realtor there. You can say my name or not. I don't care, because I don't get any commissions from him. And talk to him about it. He knows this property. I've already talked to him about it to get some of the expenses on it, so I could use it in this example. Am I assuming you're using your own cash, not using a private money lender? No, like for a down payment, Brandon? I guess that's the question. So anyway, this is how I'm underwriting the deals. It's a checklist, right? So I determine the revenue, and now I'm underwriting the deal, and I'm making sure all these things line up. And if it does, I move to the next step. If at any point there's a red flag, I stop and I move on. Okay. All right, guys, we're running out of time here. So I want to take a few questions, but lastly, I've showed you a lot of good information. I want to offer this to you guys for STR Insights. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can use this code. It's 15% off any of the plans. It's Proforma 23. You can go at STR Insights. It'll help you identify markets to look into. But more importantly, I want to help you guys out even more. We have a property finder service. We can help you guys identify properties and help you know where to look for markets as well, and potentially find deals and how to underwrite deals as well. So I'm only going to do this because there's only a handful of people on this. We've got about 50 people on right now. And I know not all of you are going to take me up on this, which is okay. I don't care. I'm going to give you a link to my personal, make sure this is the right one. Yep. My personal Calendly. I'm going to post in the comments. I will allow you guys to schedule a one-on-one with me for 15 minutes. You guys can put something on my calendar, fill my calendar. Please only schedule one, by the way. And we can talk about markets, properties that you're looking at. I don't care. Free call, no strings attached. Let's just talk. If you need help finding, evaluating, or underwriting deals, please schedule a call with me. I posted the link in the comments, and reach out if you have any other questions. Guys, I unfortunately do have to go. I have another call in like 1 minute, but if you have questions I haven't answered, please please reach out to me, either Facebook, Instagram. I'm going to stop sharing. My Instagram is at Kenny Bedwell. You can reach me there. Some people do that, or Facebook. Let's chat. Let's have a conversation, and let me help you in wherever you're looking. If it's your first one, if it's your next one, I don't care what it is. We can talk about markets. We can talk about properties. We can go through deals together. Let's do it. Please reach out. Don't hesitate. And I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Please go back and rewatch it. It is recorded. You'll get the link to that. And I look forward to seeing you on future workshops. I realized I probably should have broken this down even further, but I'll do that for future ones. It was a lot to cover. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this and found some value in it. And if you have questions, like I said, reach out, no strings attached. Happy to help anytime and help you guys be successful and reach your goals. So thanks. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, and I'll see you on the next one.